the block 1 and start answering these questions. I'm quite sure you have read this lesson. I have asked you to read before coming to day school. And so could you please go through your lesson 3 and try to answer these questions. What are the limitations in tunnel surveying? Why do we use auxiliary telescopes in theodolites in tunnel surveying? Why do we use roof stations and markers in tunnel surveying? Then the final question is, how do we illuminate crosshairs in theodolites and strings of target plumps? Could you please go through your book and try to answer these questions for about 20 minutes time? So I might ask some people to switch on their mics and answer me. So please try this exercise. Any volunteers? Can someone else answer this question? There are 5. There are 5 reasons given in the book. So 3 is remaining according to the book. So can somebody answer?
Instrument stations are used usually above
Sorry?
the instrument.
You are Senani Bandar, right?
Instrument stations are above the instrument.
Yes.
Illuminations must be provided.
Yes. Who is that? Yes, all these reasons are given in your book, right? Right. I don't want to repeat those things because those are literal things. You can read it. Then the final reason is traverse measurements, right? Usually include vertical angles, right? So these ducts are inclined. So mostly the vertical angles are involved in calculating traverse. So when you're going to measure vertical angles, you can only tilt the telescope for a certain degree. If it is, if you have to tilt the telescope further, it will hit the plate, right? So That is one reason. So these things you can literally read out of your book, right? Then the second question, any volunteers? Why do we usually why we use auxiliary telescopes in theodolites internal survey? Why? This is under section 3.3. Can you
Hello, sir.
answer that question? Why do we use auxiliary telescopes?
To make sure its line of sight is parallel.
To make sure.
To make sure the line of sight it should have the
Yeah.
line of sight parallel.
Have line of sight parallel.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more answers?
Hello, sir.
Yes. Yes. Talia, yes.
When we incline the main telescope, there may be this that site may be disturbed by the plate of
Yeah,
the
that's one of the
tripod.
major. That's one of the major reasons actually.
That's why we use auxiliary telescope above the main telescope.
Yeah. That's the main. Actually, that's the main cause. Honestly, then the third question. Why do we use roof stations and markers in tunnel surveying? You know, when you do traverse on land, so we don't mount anything on trees. We only put pegs on the ground, right? As stations. So in this case, we always put these roof stations as markers. So actually, the pegs are on the roof of the tunnel. Why do we use such technique? Can anyone answer? Any volunteer?
Instrument stations are usually above the instrument.
Stations are
Usually above the instrument.
stations are usually above the instrument. What do you mean by this? Now my question is, why do we put these stations on the roof of the? Yes?
Not to lose.
Sorry.
Permit station can't.
Operational reasons you will find
the
it.
Yeah, that's the reason, right? Now in a tunnel, you have very limited space. Now all the work is going through the space. If you want to transport things, you have to transport things through that space. Then if you want to do lighting, you have to do through that space. If you want to provide ventilation, you have to do through that space. So many things has to be done in a limited space. So if you put a station on the ground, what will happen? Now with your normal surveying experience, can you tell me what will happen if you put a peg on a road? What will happen? In the middle of a gravel road, let's say in the middle of a gravel road, you drive a peg. When you're doing a traverse on the ground, what will happen?
It
Yeah?
will be disturbed by the vehicle.
Yeah, it will be disturbed. Ne? This is common sense. So if you put something on the roof of the tunnel, the chance for that to get disturbed is minimal, right? That's the logic. That is why they use these roof stations, right? Okay, that is the main reason, honestly, right? The third question, sorry, the fourth question. How do we illuminate crosshairs in theodolites and strings of target plumps? According to your book.
We can illuminate the crosshairs by flashing a beam of light on the crosshairs.
Yes. That is how we do that. Then how are we going to illuminate the targets?
The X.
Sorry. Yes. Yes.
The target site is usually a plumb bob string.
Okay.
We
In your
have to
book, it
hold
has
the
been
behind the
clearly-
target.
Yes, yes.
We have to hold behind the target a lamp with its face covered with a tracing paper.
Yeah, something like that. Ne? Now in modern surveying, there are illuminating targets, right? So you don't have to worry much
Targets.
about such techniques. Even the instrument possesses lights, right? The theodolite
Yes.
itself has lights. Now these are very old techniques, but these are the fundamental techniques. That is why I asked that question, right? Which is explained in your book. So you need to read your book, right? So these descriptive things, you have to read it by yourself, right? These are day schools things. So I'll move into the detailed lecture now, right? Now, if we, so we are going to talk about the adjustments for top mounted telescopes, right? Now there are two types of telescopes. If you go through your book, top-sided and top-mounted and side-mounted telescopes are there. And that means if you have, let's say I'll show you. If you have, let's say this is one telescope. If you mount another telescope parallel to that by the side of this telescope, so that's a side-mounted telescope. So when you rotate, they rotate like that, right? Right? So, but if you mount another auxiliary telescope on top of the actual telescope, so that's a top-mounted telescope, right? That's a top-mounted telescope, right? So, so first we are going to talk about the adjustments for the top-mounted telescopes, right? Now, the horizontal crosshair of the auxiliary telescope must lie in a plane perpendicular to the vertical axis of the instrument, right? Now, you can see here that when you slightly, you can target this object. Now, when you slightly turn this telescope, if the target does not go along the crosshairs, horizontal crosshairs, there is a problem. So you need to rectify by adjusting the positions of the crosshairs, right? So you have to make sure that these are properly horizontal and vertical crosshairs are present in your telescope. Then the second correction is that the line of sight of the auxiliary telescope as defined by the vertical crosshair must be parallel to that of the main telescope. That means now in this case, now this is the line of sight of the main telescope, and the line of sight of the auxiliary telescope has to be parallel to this main telescope. If it is not parallel, if the line of sight of the auxiliary telescope is tilted, that is going to give a errorful reading, right? So to do that correction, so you can simply use a staff. You can bring a staff in front of these two set telescopes, and you can target it, and you can move this the tripod, let's say about 100 meters. Maybe it depends on the availability of space. Now, when you move this staff, the reading, the position of the reading for the auxiliary telescope has to be the same at that second position as well, because it has to be parallel, right? But if this goes up and down, so there is an error. You can see that error. So with that, you have to do the correction, right? So those corrections you have to do when you are going to use auxiliary telescopes, right? Now let's talk about corrections for side-mounted telescopes, right? Now, when you're going to do corrections for side-mounted telescopes, first, why do we need corrections? Do you understand why do we need corrections? Why do we need corrections? This is section 3.7.1, right? Why do we need corrections? Can somebody explain? Why do we need corrections? Now, if you look at this, we are talking about side-mounted telescopes. Now, if you're going to do the reading with the auxiliary side-mounted telescope, you will first target, let's say you will first target A here, and next you will target B here. So this auxiliary telescope is rotating in a circle like this, right? So what you are measuring is the position change of this telescope from this position to this position, right? So you are measuring this POQ angle, right? POQ angle. What you really want to measure, if you do this exercise on the ground with a single telescope, so what you're really measuring, you will be targeting A here, and you will be turning and targeting B here. So what you really want to measure is AOB, right? What you really want to measure is AOB. But what you're measuring is POQ, right? Now the thing is, you have to do a correction to your reading. Otherwise, you are reading a wrong angle, right? Now, mathematically, if you look at this diagram, now this POQC, if you look at this POQC is a cyclic quadrilateral, right? Actually, if you can simply draw this is a cyclic quadrilateral. So there is a geometry related to this type of quadrilaterals, right? So that means this radius is in normal to its tangents. So these are 90-degree angles, right? So you can simply calculate the angle A and angle B with trigonometry, right? So angle A is equal sine inverse OP over OA, right? And angle B is equal sine inverse OQ over OB, right? And let's say, so you want to measure AOB, right? So if you can measure AOP and add POB, or if you can measure POB and add BOQ, you will get this angle, right? So what happened is that AOP becomes 90 minus A. Similarly, BOQ, this small angle here, becomes 90 minus B. And if you want to get AOB, it is PO. It is adding up of these two angles, right? So what you have is that addition. So you will have AOB equals POQ plus B minus A. So what is POQ here? POQ is the angle between OP and OQ, right? So this is what you measure with the auxiliary telescope. So this POQ is the measurement that you take and the B minus A is the correction that you need to do to get the A or B. Now this the image on the left hand side shows the readings taken with the help of face left. Now if you turn face right and do the similar exercise, you will get an equation. Here instead of plus B minus A, you will get minus B minus A. So you only have to get the two readings and add it up. So if you just add it up and divide it by 2, so you will get the right reading, because the next one is AOB equals POQ minus B minus A. So you only have to add it up, the readings, and divide it by 2. So the next one, this is section 3.7.2 in your book, right? I have only taken the very important thing, right? Now, if you look at this image again, you don't need to go into much detail, right? So what you're measuring, let's say what you're measuring is this angle, right? This entire angle, right? But what you really want to measure is this angle theta. Why? Because this is the main telescope. What you want to measure to the top object is this angle, right? Theta here. So that theta is represented here. But there is an error, right? Alpha minus what? Alpha minus theta, right? Now, this is observed, right? And one second, please. Sorry. Now, what you want to get this correct angle, right? So you have to do this correction. So you can read this. O and O dash are the centers of the main auxiliary telescopes respectively. This O dash and O, right, are the centers. The point is being sighted by the auxiliary telescope. The point has been observed through the auxiliary telescope. You can see from the figure that the error in the vertical angle is given by O sine inverse OO dash, is OO dash divided by OP, right? OP from here to here, right? Where OP is the inclined distance, right? You will be able to see from the above corrections that side-mounted telescopes are preferred to top-mounted telescopes, since the former can be transited and hence the error can be eliminated. Now you can see, now in this case, the error correction, to do the error correction, you will also have to measure the distance, right? Now, in previous case, you don't have to do the distance measurement. You only have to take the two readings, add it and divide it by 2, right? That's all. But in this case, you will have to measure this distance. So the error that you might introduce into the readings of the distance measurement will be replicated in your angle measurements as well. So now we are going to talk about the underground traversing. This is section 3.8 in your lesson, right? Now, as you can see, so the backside is normally taken as a target, then there is a foresight target. So you need to calculate the elevation of the foresight here. So it's a simple mathematical exercise. You can simply add it up in this equation, right? So that's not difficult. Let's say the elevation here is, if it is h0, right? If the elevation here at the station of the corresponding instrumentation is h0, you will have to h0 at h2, then you will have to deduct this height, right? So if you know this inclined distance SD into sine theta, you have to deduct, and you also have to deduct minus h, right? Then you will get the elevation here at foresight, right? That's not difficult. And also the angle measurements we have just discussed before. You can use either side mounted or top mounted. So we prefer side mounted telescopes due to that error elimination. So we'll move into next picture. Now, in this case, it is a little bit tricky, right? Now, in first case, you have to get this correction. You can get this equation right. But in this case, you will have to again use your geometrical knowledge, right? Now, if this is h0, h0 minus h2 means this elevation. Now, this elevation is equals to SD sine theta is from this point to this elevation, total height from this point to this elevation, vertical height, somewhere here. And you have to deduct, you have to add another h minus h1 reading here. Then you will get this equation, right? So these are the two equations formed based on geometry. Please exercise and prove this by yourself at home, right? So extreme care should be taken in making observations. Always make observations on both phases of the theodolite, right? So if you make a small error, you are going to calculate wrong levels. So at the end of the tunnel, you will have a big error if you don't take precautions. The next one. Correlations of underground survey, right? This is section 3.9 in your block, correlations of underground survey. Now, in reality, you will have to measure tunnel system like this, right? But you can measure a tunnel system like this, but at the end of the day, you will have to correlate your surveying to the surveying that we do on the surface. Now, in order to do the correlation, you need to have the same coordinate system. In order to have the same coordinate system, you need to have the same bearing, right? So there are several techniques proposed in your book. So I'll give you around 5 minutes to answer this question. The first question is how to orient underground surveying in relation to ground surveying. The answer is there in your book. If the vertical shaft is too long and deep, what are the precautions one must take on the vertical wires? So there are two methods explained in your book. One is method of one wire, each in two shafts, and method of two wires in one shaft, right? Now we are going to do the first one, method of one wire in each of two shafts, right? So you can see there are two shaft systems. The shafts are the ones that we approach the tunnels. So now this tunnel has been approached in 2 directions. There are 2 shafts. So could you please go through the lecture note, sorry, the block 1 book and find answers for these 2 questions. I'll give you around 10 minutes. Okay, any volunteers to answer the first question? Did you read the section 3.9.2? Any volunteers? No volunteers? Now, basically, you assume bearing, assume north inside the tunnel, and with respect to that, you calculate the bearing and coordinates of all the stations. Then after that, what we do is a conversion from the assumed coordinate systems to the real coordinate systems, which will give you the bearings of the orientations of all the lines of your survey. That is how we do it. Then the second question, if the vertical shaft is too long and deep, what are the precautions one must take on the vertical wires? Are there any volunteers, please? So what is the answer in your book? Yes, there is a specific answer in your book. What is the answer? Yes.
Immersing the weight in an oil bath.
Yes, that's the answer. First, you have to hang in a weight to make the line straight, but due to vibrations, it could oscillate due to noise waves and various things. So if you, after hanging a heavy weight on the wires here, you can immerse it in a oil bath to damp the vibration effect. Yes, that's the answer. Now, let's talk about this method. Now, the general survey is similar to what we do with the assumed north. Then after calculating the coordinates of the system, you can simply convert it using a conversion method. Now, let's say this N dash and E dash represents the real coordinate system, the real bearing. Let's say, sorry, this N and E represents your assumed north and east. With respect to this north and east, you have calculated the coordinates of, let's say, B, C, D, E. You have coordinates with respect to N and E system, but you will have to convert it to N dash and E dash system. So we'll go to the next page. Now, in this conversion is simply explained. Now, you need to find E dash, right? E dash is the distance from this real north to this point, right? This distance. Now, to calculate this distance, you already know distance from this point to this point, which is equal to E naught, right? Because the origin of this point A is N naught and E naught, right? So this distance is E naught. You only need to find this distance here, right? Now this distance you can find in terms of this E here and N here. Now, if this point has the coordinates of E and N, now this distance can be calculated with the help of trigonometry. Now this is N and this distance is N sine alpha. And if this is E and this distance is E cos alpha. So you can see this entire length, this part is equals to N sine alpha plus E cos alpha. So if you want to find this entire length, it is E naught plus E cos alpha plus N sine alpha here. Similarly, you need to find N dash, that is the height to this point from the O dash E dash line, this height, right? You already know the height from O dash E dash to A, which is N naught, right? Now you only need to find the small part here. Now to find that part, if you can find this height, that's enough. Now to find this height, you only need to get this height. This length is N cos alpha, and this height is E sin alpha. So if you deduct this height from this height, you will get this small height. So which is equals to N cos alpha. From this point to this point, it is N cos alpha. From this point to this point, it is E sin alpha. So you can get N naught plus N cos alpha minus E sin alpha. Now, if you go through the question paper, this is one question I have asked. Believe me, very few people have answered this question, which is very simple, right? So that's all for today's day school. I will do the 2IS in single shaft system next in the next day school, and I will proceed to the theory of errors and adjustments. I am planning to do the next day school in next Saturday. Next Saturday at same time. I tried my best to explain this lesson. Do you have any questions? Yeah, we will do some exercises later from your book. Some of the examples that I explain here, you can work it out by yourself, and they are very well explained. So with that, I will wrap up the day school today. I will upload this video to the same YouTube channel, and I will also upload this video to Learn OUSL. So you can get it from Learn OUSL and from YouTube channel. Okay. Thank you very much, and looking forward to see you next week. Good night. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. Then I'll wrap up. So there are few chats, no questions. Okay. Okay, good night, everyone. We'll see you next Saturday, right? Right. Somebody's asking about the CAT exam. Yes, they are planning to do the CAT exam online. It will be an open book exam this time, right? So that means you can keep your books with you and answer the questions. They will discuss about it later, right? Maybe in next day schools. Okay, good night.